right.
We are recording.
Perfect. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 6th C4 meeting. A joy as always to see you all. I hope everyone's staying warm and is not snowed in. Oh, wait, that's just media highlights. So we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So, Jamie, if you'll throw up a flag for us, and we will do our due diligence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to
the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. We are, let's see, I don't think we have too many new faces yet, but we have a couple. So we'll do quick introductions and just, who you are, what city and position you're with. And if you missed the conversation on favorite Super Bowl food or beverage, please state what that is. I am Brian Hansen. I am one of your co-chairs for C4. I'm the mayor of the amazing city of Canby, where I have been there now as the mayor for 12 years, going on my, seventh term, sixth term. It's amazing. So we'll start, we'll go around what's on my screen here. Miss Lorenzini.
Good evening, C4. I'm your staff, and nachos are the food of choice.
Perfect. Joshua.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Joshua Callahan, Happy Valley City Council President. And I like wings and cold beer. They go well. And I'm also a Patriots fan. Go Pats.
Okay. Well, we won't hold that against you, Joshua. All right. Mayor Drinkwine, are you there, sir?
Can you hear me?
We can. Hello, sir.
All right. How are you doing? It's been a long time since I've been here.
Glad to see you, sir. Sort of.
I appreciate all of you on here. I've been the mayor now for 8 years, councilor before that for 8 years. So I've been in it a while. Just looking to stay in touch and get back in it. So appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gornick.
Paul Gornick from Oak Lodge Water Services, representing sanitary districts.
Excellent. And are you a Super Bowl fan?
My stepfather is from Springfield, Missouri, so I tend to be a Chiefs fan.
Okay. All right. Miss Pratt.
Valerie Pratt, City Council President, and chili's on the menu at our house.
Excellent. Mayor Milch.
Michael Milch, Mayor of Gladstone. Any kind of chips, nachos, I love it all.
There we go. My partner in crime, co-chair Commissioner Savas.
Good evening, everyone. Paul Savas, Clackamas County Commissioner, and chips and dip.
Excellent. Mr. Hilliard.
Yes, Mark Hilliard, Beaver Creek and Hamlet of Beaver Creek, representing the 3 hamlets, and tuna dip and Philly cheesesteak.
Philly cheesesteak, those are good.
Yes, go Chiefs.
Okay. Mayor Kaiser.
Scott Kaiser, Mayor of Molalla, going on my 5th year, 2nd term. Food of choice would be, actually drink of choice, duck farts on the touchdowns and sausage dogs.
Okay. Perfect. Mr. Cernak.
Kenny Cernak with the representing CPOs, and I'm hoping to make some ribs.
Excellent. Mr. Mayor O'Neill.
Mayor O'Neill from the city of Wilsonville. I've had a huge, lengthy service of 1 month as an elected official. I look forward to working with you more experienced folks. There's another, I'm a New England fan as well, and really enjoy tacos and nachos and beer.
There we go. Perfect. Mayor Buck.
Good evening, everyone. Joe Buck, Mayor of Lake Oswego. Probably unpopular statement, but I've never watched a Super Bowl in my life.
Okay. Are you going to keep that trend this year?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
I'd rather prepare for a C4 meeting.
All right, perfect. Mr. Sheldon.
Good evening. I'm Rich Sheldon. I'm a city councilor from the city of Sandy. And all this junk food that everyone's mentioned is great, but my favorite would probably be spicy chicken wings.
It sounds good. Mr. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. John Sarah, TriMet Local Government Affairs Manager, and it's got to be chicken wings and the champagne of beer.
Right. Sounds good. Mr. Morrow.
Good evening, everyone. Adam Marl, Oregon City Commissioner, and I love me some chips and dip.
Perfect. Mr. Anderson.
Hello, Will Anderson, Council President in the great city of Milwaukee. And I hate to say it, it's a tofu nacho that I make. And I know some of you might judge that, but it is so good. You've got to try it. I'll have any of you over and I'll woo your socks off with it.
Okay. All right. That's a pretty bold statement with tofu. Mr. West.
Thank you, Mayor Hodson. Congratulations, Council President Anderson. I didn't know that you took on that new role. Congrats to you. You'll serve your city well. Gosh, it's either like wings or the chili dip that we do with cream cheese and then like Juanita chips. So maybe we'll have to swap chip dip recipes, Council President Anderson. But yeah, I will enjoy the Super Bowl, have a good time and good food. Thank you.
All right. And Mr. Wilson.
Thanks for having me, Trent Wilson, Clackamas County staff team here. I am from Texas, and so bring the meat, bring the beer, and caution to you all for those 3 Super Bowls so close together can sometimes turn into a 30-year drought. So do be careful if you get that many trophies so close together.
Or in Valerie's and mine's case, it's a drought that goes all the way back to the 60s. So we won't talk about that. All right. Well, welcome, everybody. Miss Lorenzini, you have your hand up.
Yeah, briefly, I want to acknowledge that we have a lot of new names on the attendee side of this meeting. If you are here as a representative of your jurisdiction, please feel free to throw up your hand and I will shift you over if your representative is not already in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie, for doing that. I appreciate it. Well, we've got a fun, jam-packed agenda this evening, so we are going to get into it. So first up, I think, is housekeeping, and I'll take a motion for the approval of the February 6th minutes.
So moved.
Okay, I've heard a moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Perfect. Anyone not in favor of the minutes? Okay, looks like that is good. We pass those. Next up is discussion. I think March meeting. I don't think it's much of a discussion. We are going to be in person. Jamie, is there any added pieces to that other than like where on this fabulous Clackamas County campus are we going to be having it?
Hey, once upon a time before the era of COVID, we met in the Development Services Building. We are meeting in our old room, which will be the conference room here at the county campus. Information to come.
Perfect. Well, very excited to get everybody back in person. It'll be a fun meeting. And yeah, hopefully we won't have too many things being thrown about the room. Perfect. Moving into the next order of business is the Library District Task Force. And Commissioner Savas is going to kind of give us some background on that and tell us about the recent conversation by the BCC and what's next. Mr. Savas.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, Co-Chair Hodson. Just a really short story. When we got C4 started in 2001, our focus here at C4 was on land use and transportation primarily, and our bylaws are pretty well written to, on that statement. But along the way, excuse me, things come up from time to time. And in 2004, there was a lot of conversation regarding libraries. There was no library district in place at the time. Myself wearing the special district hat and Commissioner Martha Schrader wearing the county commission hat, heard a lot of the concern about that. We had then at the time Mayor Linda Malone from Sandy. We had Mayor Norris from Oregon City. So there was a lot of buzz about libraries, and the concern was that the unincorporated areas were using city libraries and not paying for it, and they felt that there was that ought to be addressed. Long story short, for a number of other reasons and federal funding going away from forest related cuttings and so forth, we lost a lot of funding to the county. So we were in jeopardy with library funding and we could no longer fund some of the libraries that we even had. Long story short, the cities, primarily with the city leadership of the city managers, primarily at that point in time, the city manager of Sandy, Scott Lazenby, kind of led with county librarians and others this idea of a library district. And long story short, in 2008, that was passed by the voters at a modest tax rate, and it was meant to augment, not completely fund at the time, library services and kind of hold a base standard. It was specifically written in the ballot measure that it'd be for operations and maintenance. And we'll get into the weeds about the complications of that. You'll learn all that later if you want to pay attention to it. But long story short, it's time for some adjustments. There were a couple of oversights that led to a few problems. So we have about a list of issues that need to be resolved, and potentially it may result in going back to the voters for a small or modest increase. So the Board of County Commissioners has basically approved a strategy of forming a task force with a mixture of professionals and people in the field like librarians and city managers and a couple electeds. And so there'll be one county commissioner and there'll be two mayors, ideally. And we would like to have one mayor from the rural and one mayor from the urban selected. And we would like the cities to actually make that choice. So I've been asked to ask you all to nominate two mayors from rural and nominate two mayors from urban. So the Board of County Commissioners can select one of your choices of the pool of two. So we can, again, start filling those seats and populating them. So if you want to do that tonight, that would be great. It'd be a caucus and discussion with just you all. Or if you would like to get back to us, ideally early next week, if you want to have a separate meeting amongst yourselves for that caucus. But I just want to put that on the table and hear from you all. So I see some hands up. So Mayor Hodson, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. So just a clarifying piece, the nominees, at least from the mayor piece, they don't necessarily need to be C4 members, correct? These are mayors or councilor. It looks like just mayors from even if they're non C4 members, correct?
Correct. If the consensus of your group, I mean, is to pick two mayors, and if they don't happen to be on C4, that's perfectly fine. It's up to you all. It's your choice.
Thank you.
Mayor Kaiser.
I'd like to make a nomination if the committee's good with that.
Okay, please go ahead.
I'd like to nominate co-chair Mayor Hodson for the rural seat, mayor seat.
Okay. All right. There's one nomination, Mayor Buck.
If it's okay, I just noting, who's here and who's not here. Why don't I could circle back with some of the other mayors. I think, Mayor Beatty and Mayor Milch is here, but Mayor McGriff, I know that this issue is near and dear to them, and maybe we could, find a way to talk to the ones who are not here and gauge interest and, who's best suited for it, and then come back to the nominations.
Okay, okay. So, so I heard so far from one rural mayor nomination, and then I'm hearing from Mayor Buck, a preference on the urban side, maybe to have another conversation in the next few days or so, something like that. So, Mr. Sheldon.
Yeah, thanks. For the rural mayor, the second name I'd like to throw out is our Mayor Kathleen Walker.
Okay. So we have two nominations. So I guess let's just do the rural. It seems to be, we have a flow here. Maybe we can get that one particular one finished. Is there any other nominations? We have all the rural mayors here, well, with the exception of Mayor Walker. So, gentlemen, rural folks, do you have any, would you like to add anyone else, or do you want to have those are your two, and by acclamation, have those as the nominees?
I'm fine with Mayor Hodson. I think he's a great choice.
Okay. All right. So I guess I'm not hearing any other nominations, so we'll include Mayor Hodson and Mayor Walker as the two nominees from C4, and the Board of County Commissioners will put that in their list of all those selections, decisions to be made for that task force. And Mayor Buck, Councilor Callahan.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. I didn't know if we were also going to get into the other portions of that board that were discussed. I just wanted to offer our Assistant City Manager, Ben Bryant, has volunteered also and would be happy to help serve on that in one of those other positions that this task force is looking to fill if that comes up.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to be. What might be is that there might be a gathering of the city managers and let them select, similar to what we're doing here, that, the electeds pick from the electeds, and maybe the different positions like librarians and the city managers pick from their own pool. So
that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. All the urban mayors and urban representatives here tonight, are you all okay with Mayor Buck maybe taking the lead and waiting, or Mayor Milch? I see you have your hand up.
Just a question, are we subject to any kind of open meeting laws? Can we do this over email and just communicate among ourselves? Just want to clarify that we're not doing things out of, in any way that shouldn't be done.
Yeah, we're not an elected body, and there's not a quorum of any elected jurisdiction here. So this typically how we do nominations. We don't do library stuff very often, but in the near future here, you're all going to be selecting people by a similar process for the executive committee and other positions. So this has been our procedure for selecting. So it's completely compliant with public meetings law.
Very good.
Okay. Do you have anything else you'd like to add, Mayor Milch?
I'd be interested in serving. I was appointed to the task force that was formed in 2019. This libraries are of great interest to me, and I know there are a lot of complex issues that need to be dealt with, but this is something I've given some time to. So I hope I'll be one of the ones considered, but I'm willing to work with all the other mayors of the urban cities and come up with some good nominations.
Okay, thank you. Mayor O'Neill.
I was just going to echo Mayor Buck's suggestion. I'd like to have more input from the other mayors.
Okay. Is there a volunteer from the urban mayors to take the lead on this and report back to us?
I can do it. I can circulate an email between us.
Okay. So Mayor Buck, I'll wait to hear what comes out of your meeting with your fellow mayors of the urban mayors on this, and please forward me your response. Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Well, great. So Mayor Hodson, I turn the floor back to you. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies.
Ruby, perfect. All right, so that piece was covered. Perfect. Next up on our agenda this evening is the 2025 Strategic Investment Fund update. And that is Mr. Besner, excuse me, presenting. Good evening, Mike. How are you, sir?
Good. Was that you butchering my name?
It was, and I apologize.
It's all
I,
good. It's all good.
I know I wanted to put an L in there for some reason.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, unfortunately, I'm a lifelong New York Jets fan, so I can compete with the Browns. I picked all the wrong teams as a kid.
So are you going to be watching the game?
Yeah, I'm a football guy, so yeah, I'll be watching the game.
And a favorite food for Super Bowl?
A lot of people said it's a little, but chili, definitely chili.
Perfect. Sounds good. All right. What do
All
you
right.
have?
Well, hey, everybody. It's been a while since I've presented to C4, so it's good to see a lot of faces I know. For those who don't, I'm Mike Besner. I'm the Assistant Director of Transportation for Clackamas County. And I'm here to give you an update on part of the county's vehicle registration fee. When it was created I'll just go back, give you a little history. I've got about 5 years ago when the Board of County Commissioners voted to do it. The ordinance, and consistent with state law, 60% of the money went to the county and 40% went to the cities to be split up. But the county commissioners at the time, for the 60% that went to the county, 50% of it was 50% of the total was designated for certain county interests, but the 10% was used to create something called the Strategic Investment Fund. And the purpose of that was to promote road jurisdiction changes, so transferring jurisdiction of county roads to cities where appropriate, but then also projects of mutual interest between the county and city. And so back then I went to C4 and presented on a pretty good laundry list of projects. And Jamie, am I able to share my screen? That's dinner in the background hissing in case you're able to hear it. All right. So the original project list was, I pretty much have what we've spent the money on here. So things in green are pretty much completed. Things that are not shaded at all are in progress, and things that are in the orangish color are not moving forward. And so what we did with the money, we had a pretty big road transfer with the city of Canby. We did a much smaller one, but a road transfer with the city of Estacada. We did a project on 362nd, just outside of Sandy, that was completed pretty recently. And with Wilsonville, we did a couple jurisdictional transfers. In progress, Estacada, Deuce Eagle Creek intersection is in design and getting ready. Hopefully go to get constructed next year. Lake Oswego, we're in talks about a whole bunch of roads to do jurisdictional transfers with. And when I say in talks with, it's staff to staff at this point. Malala, we're designing the Bear Creek Bridge replacement. And I believe in the end, some of that Malala Avenue will get transferred as well. And then Oregon City, we're discussing a transfer of Beaver Creek Road. We already did a very small transfer with the money on Caulfield. A few of these didn't happen. Gladstone, Happy Valley, and Milwaukee all declined to do the road transfers that were in the original plan. And City of Tualatin, we were going to do a multi-use path along Borland Road. The cost was way more than anybody anticipated. So this funding source, this only raises about 1.1 million a year. So we're not talking about a magic pot of gold. But it was too much for this funding source to make happen. So we decided not to move forward with it. And City of West Lynn, we didn't have any county roads in the City of West Lynn. I think we still don't. So we talked about contributing some money towards a project, but nothing ever materialized. So before I show the next one, I know this is all in your packet. Any questions about what I've discussed so far? Let me stop sharing for a second so I can see you again. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mike. And again, I know that we went through a lot of work to get those transfers done in Canby, and we do appreciate it very much. I know there was a lot of back and forth, but really do appreciate working with the county to get that done. How many how many road transfers are kind of left for, for transfer or up for conversation at this point?
Well, my door is always open for business when it comes to road transfers. So it's not a finite number. But that is a pretty good segue. Why don't I just share the next one? That'll give you an idea here. So we are talking with Jerry. Oh, did I share it yet? Oh, I did. I hit the share button. Sorry about that. You'd think after all this time I would have figured Zoom out. Pine, we're discussing that, and I think we floated a proposal to City of Canby staff this week. The one with, and again, there's the one with Lake Oswego, Oregon City. We're having some conversations with Sandy right now about a pretty small one on 10 Acre Road. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not. But those are the active ones right now. And again, this is just the plan that I've outlined. We're finishing up the project with Estacada, Malala, as I mentioned, and River Grove, and it's also right adjacent to Lake Oswego. We're going to do one of the rapid flashing beacons at an intersection where there's a lot of crossings. And then I have to be determined for a few of these, and I want to talk about the Tualatin one first. Because that project wasn't going to move forward, we're talking with Tualatin about, there's another project on 65th Avenue, which is half of Clackamas County Road, half of Washington County Road, about switching the money over there, but we haven't finalized anything yet. So that's why that one's shown there. And then again, Gladstone, and Happy Valley and Milwaukee, we had programmed in road transfers, but they did not want to follow through with them. So I have just placeholders in the outer years here. And then same with West Lynn, as I mentioned originally, we never really identified anything to do with the money. So two more things I want to mention before we open it up here. This estimated balance at the bottom, that's with all the anticipated spending plus getting that around 1 million in revenue a year. So it's that's all factored into the balance. We don't want it to go to zero. We want to have some money in there. And the other thing I want to be real clear about is I know you're all looking at these numbers and saying, "Ooh, how did my city do compared to these other cities?" You're all keeping score because I would do the same thing. Keep in mind, we have lots of partnerships with lots of cities that involve different pots of money. We're doing with even other vehicle registration fee dollars. We're about to build a huge project right outside Lake Oswego, and then we're starting design of a huge one outside of Wilsonville using different vehicle registration funds. We use urban renewal money with cities, so we're all partnering in lots and lots of ways. But again, it's a small amount of money. I'll stop sharing. And we just haven't touched base with each other in a while about it. The projects we've gotten to do have been pretty good, and the road transfers as well. Every time we can get roads into the hands of the city where it's your jurisdiction, your permitting, your standards, it's a win. And that's where this money, helps do that. It helps give the cities an incentive to take them, because you are taking on a future, something you have to take care of. I am going to go before the Board of County Commissioners, currently scheduled later this month, to give them an update on this as well. So that's what I've got for you. That's the plan. I know it's a little vague in those outer years, but I will keep working with staff from the cities and try and come up with a good use of the money. Any questions for me?
Mute. So my quick question, I'm sure as we look at these transfers that are occurring and have occurred, when this is kind of all said and done, or maybe you guys I'm sure you're tracking it, but what savings does this create for the county by transferring these off your guys' books at that level to the cities? Has that been looked at yet?
Well, I mean, it's why we offer money, right? And the money is usually the value of a 2-inch overlay of asphalt. And it's also, if there's sidewalk ramps that don't meet ADA, we add an amount for that. What we don't do is include money for urbanizing, for improvements to it. We don't think that's the county's role. But yeah, there's a value, which is why we're offering money, right? And it's mostly whatever the future maintenance will be. And I could say in your guys' case with Canby, Jerry is very good and efficient with your guys' money and the way he takes care of the roads. And we're still going to give the money for a 2-inch overlay. A city might say, I have a different idea. I could save money and do something less. That's fine. The money is really it's really just a way to figure out what an exchange value is. So I don't have an exact number like in perpetuity.
Yeah.
But we definitely recognize that we're not going to permit or do any work on that road.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was just trying to drive at, is that it ultimately, I know in the case of Camby and the roads that we've transferred from the county, it's a tough situation for the county to, one, get to all the roads to repair them and keep them maintained. And then it's a cost piece to that. I was just curious if what kind of a, back of the napkin penciling out that looks like in terms of just additional monies to be used elsewhere than maintenance within the cities.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt when we don't have to take care of those roads, you just stated it, that we are able to spend our resources on county roads outside cities.
Mayor Milch.
Just a clarification on the sequence then. So it's not that you fix these roads and then pay us some money to take them off your hands so that we will be responsible for future maintenance. But the money that you provide is to bring them up to city standards at the time we take them over, and the work would be contracted and done at the city level. Is that correct?
Yeah, the city can do whatever they want with the money as long as it complies with the Oregon Constitution for road funds. So a city doesn't actually even need to spend that money on that road. But it is road funds, so it has to be spent on roads. But yes, you are correct. When we do these transfers, we just write a check and then the city would do whatever they want. We don't improve it ahead of time. There are exceptions to that. When the whole project, I hate to keep using Canby as an example, but it's a good one. We're doing a project on Ivy in Canby right now. We've been actually working on it for years. But it's under construction, and part of our agreement is when it's done, the road will turn over to the city of Canby. So we do projects that result in jurisdictional transfers, but most of them is, yeah, exactly how you put it. We write a check and the city they can fix the road. Sometimes the roads don't need all that much, but they can spend it anywhere in their road budget that they want.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, it was at least at the time when I was on the commission and we went through this, I think it was foreseeable that at some point, even if every city took the opportunity and all the roads that were county owned within the cities were finally transferred, we knew this fund would perhaps, I can't speak for all my commissioners, but I know we discussed it along the way, that this 10% of the county's portion, because that's what this is, 60% of the money was for the counties, 40 for the cities. And we carved out that 10% for the road transfers, as Mike defined, as well as projects of mutual benefit. So, it was foreseeable that those road transfers would come to an end, if they're all takers or maybe not all takers, but that it would perhaps, I won't say fulfill its purpose in perpetuity or sunset, but we have a lot of roads in the unincorporated area that are, everything's getting more expensive. So, when we get to the point where all the road transfers are perhaps completed, maybe the commission might talk about reducing that amount. I don't know. We'll be discussing it, and just maybe we just keep that 5% set aside or something like that. Who knows? But I just want to let you know that you know, it was foreseeable then, it's foreseeable now that once we've completed that transfer work, then perhaps maybe some of those funds can go back to the general needs in the county. That's my comment, and turn it back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Hilliard.
Yes, I can understand for the cities and the county, it's mutual interest for the county to transfer over the roads to the cities. However, I'm curious on to what is the considerations for those folks that are in the unincorporated part that are impacted by those transportation routes that go through the city and out into the county. How are those folks considered in those kind of thought processes?
Oh, it's a good question, Mark. We always consider the people that live in the unincorporated area. First of all, I want to be clear on that. We care a lot. You know, when we have a county road in a city, the county actually has already lost some control. The land use is not ours, it's the city's. You know, when it comes to the physical pavement, we're able to use our county road standards, but much of it is dictated by cities. So we don't get a lot of say. And in addition, I think a lot of the signing and speed zoning, we lose complete control over, and they just have to annex. So, you know, we're always concerned. I know we had one with Wilsonville a few years ago where we had the transfer included a provision to not have the road be signed for no trucks. Not meaning to pick on Wilsonville there, but it's an example of what you're talking about where we were looking out for people who didn't live in the city who maybe had to get to a major route. So we're always considering it. But, you know, by the time we get to this point, the roads are usually not functioning well as county roads anymore anyway. And so it really, and to the point that we already made, by the money coming back to the county or not having to maintain it in the future, it's more likely I'll be able to pave the road in front of your house in the unincorporated area.
I'd love to jump in on this. Mark, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Well, I'm just considering the idea of Beaver Creek Road going through Oregon City off of 213, as Mike knows about, that from 2008 to 21, the traffic out there by what's on the daily traffic maps is almost gone up by 50%. And that was before a bunch of the housing has gone in across from the high school, as well as the new group of housing over by the Albertsons store there off of Maple Lane that, you know, 4-story and 5 stories that are adding to all that traffic after 21. I'm not sure, but I'm sure it's well over that. So in the considerations of the road going through the city, and that also everybody in the unincorporated area have to pass through, the thought processes and how that's going to impact, and even the city for that increased traffic that's been going through there, is the city and the county considering that potential expansion for the traffic that's going through there and increasing.
Well, yeah, I mean, we are. I mean, there's projects in plans to deal with it. Most of them are not funded, but it's planned for, which I know is not the answer you're looking for, but
yeah, we've had conversations on that, but I'm always looking for the bright light at the end of the tunnel.
Understood. Point taken. I've written it down.
Councilor Marl.
Thank you. Funny enough, I have a very similar comment to what Mr. Hilliard just said, because we have this relationship with our Beaver Creek hamlet and the fact that we have city residents that are going through their facilities, and we've got unincorporated residents coming through the exact facility that was just referenced, that being Beaver Creek in 213, which has been failing for a while now. And so my question is, when certain projects like you just showed us on that spreadsheet with certain cities don't pencil out, they aren't feasible, they aren't happening. What happens with those unused funds?
Well, and this is the first time we've addressed it, right? And so that's what I'm trying to figure out. And so we would have to either come up with a different idea, or we would spend it somewhere else if something was ready and it was applicable. And so you know, if what you're doing is saying, you guys mentioned 213 Beaver Creek. So if what you're saying is, could you put some of the unspent money towards 213 and Beaver Creek? That's something we could look at. I'd have to talk to your staff, find out what $1 million isn't going to, or 750,000 isn't going to do much on its own, especially it's an ODOT intersection. ODOT can swallow up a lot of that money in their staff time. But we'd have to look at what exactly would be proposed. Would it be the last money in? Would it actually do some good? And then I could go to the Board of County Commissioners and say, hey, Oregon City, the Hamlet of Beaver Creek asked this question, and if we put this money in, this project gets built. You know, that might be compelling. So I'll circle back with Dana and talk to her about it.
Thank you.
Hey.
So let me give you an example. I'm going to use Wilsonville as an example, and I can use Lake Oswego in the same vein, frankly, for the same, actually almost the identical purpose. But when the city of Wilsonville came to us about the Frog Pond and their urban renewal project to deal with the dip on one of the roads nearby, Mayor O'Neill, you know which road I'm talking about. At that time, we were concerned, and what's happening, it doesn't matter what city it is, when there's a growth and there's an adjoining county road that goes into the city, and there's growth on the edges, because cities usually grow on their edges, that puts a heck of a lot of traffic burden on those particular roads. In this case, with Wilsonville, it's Stafford Road. With regard to Lake Oswego, it's Stafford Road that the traffic circle we're building. You're talking about Oregon City. I mean, it's everywhere. And so we don't have a pot of money designated to deal with some of the growth that's happening in the cities. And as you know, our land use system is such that you all can extend your boundaries, but the cities aren't, it's not really legitimate for a city to spend money on a county road. We're happy to gift Stafford Road if there's a taker, for example, whether it's Lake Oswego or it's Wilsonville, but it's got to be within your city boundaries typically to make that all happen. So I'd be remiss if I didn't share with you what's on my mind to speak about when this comes up before the Board of County Commissioners. So I'm going to be, very open about it. I'm wondering if perhaps we can take some of this money, if not all of it, after the road transfers or all the applicants are made, and maybe dedicate some of this money, if not all of it, towards growth related projects that are nearby growing cities, because we don't have any money to address it. And that tax revenue, sure, property tax revenue, certainly it comes in for the county and the city. We certainly know that, but certainly not an adequate means to address the load putting on the county road. So not dissimilar to what the state goes through on its interstates and state highways. When more and more people, the population grows, there's more and more use on that. So want to just throw that out for fodder and see if there's any, what you all think about an idea like that. But, I have a few different ideas about it. I just maybe think we ought to categorize that or, maybe even consider any and every option. I don't know what my colleagues are going to come up with, but I thought that because this conversation started here, actually 14 years ago, it took a while to get this VRF in place, but I really like to hear anyone's ideas about that concept, for example.
So are we taking opening bids on Stafford? Mayor Buck, are you throwing out the first?
I just want to let you know, I'm preparing the birth rate of Lake Oswego to be the highest in the region to ensure that we get all the money from the county. Are we gonna base it on that? No, I just wanted to. Well, it seems like some of the money is following, is it not already kind of following growth? And you want it to kind of spur additional, is that what you're?
Well, there's not really a relationship towards, you know, a one-for-one relationship towards growth and then new road monies, right? Or compensating road monies. Obviously, if there's any relationship we're all battling with and the state legislature is going to be battling with is that in the current model, the revenues, whether you combine all the vehicle registration fees out there and you combine all the gas tax or fuel tax revenues and you add them all up together, owning a road is not a money-making proposition. Or maintaining roads is not a money-making proposition. It is a downward spiral, and we're losing ground as inflation is just making that gap wider. That I call it the jaws of death. The costs are outpacing the revenues we have. So you know, but there again, the growth is really coming more in the guise of safety. My issue with Stafford Road, for example, is safety. I mean, flat out. It's not about making the road nicer or wider or taking care of it as much as the safety concerns of all the traffic that is going through there. I mean, all of our state highways and our county roads in the county, man, we're bursting at the seams. I mean, the area through Damascus, we have major, I mean, I'm talking major problems on Highway 212, but there's also roads that feed into Highway 212 that are county roads. So we could do a lot. But we would like to have your agreement or ideas on how to proceed forward with this little teeny tiny chunk of money.
I know. I really appreciate what you said, because it does seem like, you know, I mean, the growth leads to decrease, you know, in the safety, because we have more traffic driving our roads for which that level of traffic was never intended for, you know, more complicated maneuvers and everything else. And of course, we see that out there at Stafford. So it does seem like the growth and safety kind of go hand in hand, and that those criteria are, you know, I mean, that's a good use of money. I don't think we need to be investing these limited funds on, you know, hardly driven roads. We have the same issue even within the city. You know, there's people that live on roads with like a 25 average daily trip, and they want us to go in and, you know, repave the whole thing. It's like, well, that's what's keeping people going slow. I mean, as much as they may not like the decrepit condition of the road, you know, if you pave it fresh, people are going to be, you know, racing down it. And it just doesn't have the trip count to really justify when there's so many other roads with much larger trip counts, and much higher safety issues, that are worthy of those investments. So,
yeah, thank you, Mayor. And something that came to my mind, another way of saying this is that, as you all know, Stafford Road from Wilsonville all the way into Lake Oswego, it's a rural road. It's designed as a rural road, but yet we have urban level traffic and we have urban level needs, and it's out of date. And so it's not about the capacity so much as it's about the safety. So thanks for your input, Mayor. Mayor O'Neill.
I'll just add that, yeah, I think in that intersection referring to the city contributed about $1 million, and we got Washington County is involved with $1 million. So it's not just Clackamas County. I think if I remember correctly, Ben West helped with that as well. So the other thing is, I think the only one qualified to try to secure Stafford Road should be someone that watches the Super Bowl, but that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Pratt.
Commissioner Savas, the one thing you said that I would hope you would consider going forward is maybe prioritizing projects that are the safety projects, because that's definitely the case with Clackamas County in particular. Is we have rural roads that are being used as more urban roads now, and they're you know, the one that was on our list for Tualatin, Borland Road, I mean, once you're out of the city limits, you're risking your life to take a bike or a, you know, walk down that road. I mean, even in a car, it's not the safest road. So those are the things that I would hope you would put as a priority in the future.
Yeah, well, thank you, Councilor Pratt. For those of you who don't know that section of Clackamas County, we call Borland Road going from Tualatin into West Lynn, ultimately to Oregon City. We call that the third lane, one of the third lanes of I-205, essentially. It is extremely dangerous. There's no safe way to bike or ped that, until you get into West Lynn or into Tualatin proper. So that's an area, but as Mike described, that project we had for Tualatin along Borland Road is terribly expensive. So if we did take on a project like that, it would take a long time to accrue the funds to actually do a project of that magnitude. Mike, could you give the members here just some scale of what the traffic circle at Stafford is, and then the improvement in the Wilsonville area with Washington County, what the funds are from the county, what the funds are from the cities?
Yeah, and this will be rough. So the one at Childs is being funded with the county's portion of the VRF and system development charges, and I want to say it's around a $16 million project, right around there, give or take.
Yeah.
Not cheap at all. We're cleaning up. There's an intersection with Johnson Road there that's a bit of a mess that we're cleaning up. It's not just that one intersection, but it's and just so y'all know, with talking about safety, we obviously take it very seriously. And that project originally was going to be a traffic signal. And we did an analysis, our staff did an analysis showing that fatalities would actually increase if we put a signal in, which, if you think about it, makes some sense, because with the way it is today, it's very difficult to make left turns, but you're very careful because it's very uncomfortable. And once you put a signal in, someone runs the light, you get a T-bone crash. So that's why we're doing a roundabout, because roundabout saves lives. So the other project down at 65th, yeah, I don't want to shortchange you, Mayor. I think that the city might be putting in 500,000, but it's significant, whatever it was. And Washington County was going to put in a sum, and they're also going to use their own staff to acquire the right of way. And the reason is because the project is it's right on the border of our two counties. But again, most of the funding is coming from the county's portion of the vehicle registration fee, different pot than this one, and system development charges, I believe. And the cost estimate is, I think it's a little less, that one, than Stafford Childs. It's slightly less complex.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. That helps give it scale. And we do appreciate the contribution from the cities, and Mayor O'Neill. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no, I want to be real clear. We really appreciate it, and your staff were great to work with on it. And we even started talking about what the next road transfer will be potentially on Advance Road and I think it was 60th. So
yeah. So any kind of themes that I can take back for the work session with the Board of County Commissioners from you tonight would be helpful. I think I heard a lot here tonight, so I appreciate any ideas. But just last call for any other ideas or concepts that you might think that we can work together on with this small percentage. Okay, well, seeing none, Mayor Hodson, turn it back to you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Besner, thank you very much for being here tonight. Appreciate it. Next on our agenda is state legislative updates, and that's going to be Mr. Wilson, our Clackamas County Government Affairs guru. And just as a time check, Trent, you've got 31 minutes.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that notice. All right. I guess that means I can go slow and I won't have to talk too fast. So in your packets are the Clackamas County State Legislative Agenda materials. And so that kind of gives you a taste and flavor of what Clackamas County is working on. I would like to orient you around some of those materials. We don't have to look at it right now, but I can verbally just process for you that we have 2 initiatives, and initiatives in our agenda and in our language are, but for Clackamas County, who else will be working on these things? So you'll see in there the Recovery Center or Recovery Campus. You'll also see the transportation package, which is, of course, one of the top priorities at the state legislature. Now, I will say, everybody's working on the transportation package. Clackamas County is not alone in that, but we are working on some priorities within the transportation package, which is why we've leveled that up there. I'm going to come back to those in just a minute. We have our priorities as well, which are things that are I would say our offense, like what we are focused on doing and achieving there. So you'll see housing, homelessness continues to be a priority at Clackamas County. No unfunded mandates, addressing the addictions crisis that the state still finds itself in, addressing a very nuanced thing with a Supreme Court decision that happened a couple years ago, which dictates how we return money to foreclosed property, the owners of foreclosed properties. So that's a fun one, super nuanced. Happy to talk about it all night if that's where you want to go. But some of that money potentially trickles back to you as cities and as taxing districts. So that's important. And so those are some of the key priorities that we're focusing on. And then you'll see on the last page of our main agenda, you'll see our principles, which is, I would say, really outlines sort of the business of a county and our communities at large. And I would say that that's the defensive side. So if there's a bill that sort of butts up against any of those principles, we use that as a way to sort of work with legislators and address those pieces and say, hey, don't you know that it costs money to do these things, that these are our services at large. And I think what I love about our agenda is we overlap so many of those services with the work that y'all do at the cities too, or as transit providers. We are a transit provider at the county as well. So I mean, there's a lot of overlap here within our agenda that I think allows us to work on goals together. In addition to our agenda, you'll see two, I think, pop-out flyers is what we'll call them. One around the transportation package, one around the recovery center. And so I want to maybe orient you around some of that work there, which we haven't spent a lot of time on discussing here at Clackamas County, especially the recovery center. We here at the county have been advancing a recovery-oriented system of care. You're welcome, Commissioner West, using the buzzword. So that means that we are trying to build out different pieces of infrastructure that allow people to access different levels of service where they find themselves in need. That could be from housing to addictions to mental and behavioral health episodes. We are trying to install various pieces of the system so that our constituents, our residents, the people who live and work and play here in Clackamas County can have access to those services, which have historically not been there or have been harder to access without the lack of infrastructure. So right now the board is moving forward with a recovery center. It is really close to Camp Withicum. The board just purchased a property a couple of months ago where that will be. It's 6 acres. We're envisioning a campus style facility there which will have recovery oriented housing, as well as more clinical provisions as well for folks to come in, get treatment, receive peer navigation services, a variety of things that help people move through that addictions recovery journey. So that's a big deal, and we are dialing for dollars to make that happen. And you'll see in there that we've raised almost 20 so far. We're working with the legislature to get 20 more. So I want to flag that for y'all, that's actually the bulk of a lot of our time. And we hope to move forward with that because that's something that can really serve our county at large. Anyone from any city, a resident can access that facility, should be able to access that facility. And that's the vision for a resource that we don't currently have in the county that we hope to put in the county. On the transportation package, number one, let me just start with the values and outcomes document that all of your cities have already agreed to keep your logo fresh on this materials to move forward together in unison around those values and outcomes. You do not need to make a decision about that today because you have already made that awesome decision to keep working together on, yes, you do support a transportation package if it accomplishes these values and outcomes that are important to Clackamas County. And so I think that's a great message. What I have heard in the, I think, 17-ish days that the legislature has been meeting is not a guarantee that a transportation package will happen. Not a guarantee that the operations and maintenance problems that have been described by ODOT are landing well with every legislator. Not a guarantee that everyone believes in 50-30-20, but that is something that is, I think, more strongly held in belief by a lot of legislators. That seems to be, mostly untouched, but there are still people who talk about it. And then it's not a guarantee that the I-205 project will be widened. It's not a guarantee that the other mega projects will move forward. It's not a guarantee that transit funding will increase. There's a lot of doubt around what the transportation package will become. There are, I would say, for the transportation issues, 3 main discussion topics. There are the operations and maintenance pieces of the transportation package that are tried and true. ODOT has described a almost it's a $1.7 billion a year need just in operations and maintenance, paving roads, filling potholes, paying drivers to the clearing trees off of roadways for visibility, those types of things. They find themselves in a operations and maintenance hole, and they've been communicating that loud and clear. And what I would say on the city's side and the county's side is we all get the other 50% of the state highway fund. Some cities find themselves in similar O&M problems. Some cities and counties don't. And I think that is because you have maybe prioritized the maintenance pieces with your budget, but you have maybe left some of the capital projects to linger a little longer that may now need to be updated. So it is a balancing act with the available funds that we all have. Please, 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 please communicate those to your legislators, those needs of what would new funding for O&M do for your city? What does it build? What does it buy? What do you get? How will your community see improvements? Will you focus on safety? Will you focus on maintenance? Will you fill all the potholes? Your legislator wants to know what that list is if they're going to support a transportation package. Because what the legislature has been very clear about is this is not a package, a projects package, transportation package, which, to buy votes, you buy votes with projects. And so a lot of legislators are struggling right now to sort of imagine, what are we building with a transportation package when we have to raise so much money? And I want to sort of clarify, what is so much money, and put this in context for you. ODOT needs $1.7 billion. That's what they've said. What Trent has heard is that that's an unrealistic number. So I think a lot of people are thinking that ODOT could potentially maybe get about half of that. So let's say 850. And this is napkin math, folks, so don't take any of this to the bank. So if they get 850, and that's only 50%, so 100% gets us back up to 1.7 billion a year. And that gets us to almost 3.5 billion per biennium, 3.5 billion per biennium. That's an increase in the state highway fund that would add like 50% to what it currently is. So take whatever you're paying and add 50% on your gas taxes, your vehicle registration fee, and so on. That's a lot of money, and legislators do not like that number. That's just the O&M problem. That does not include the 5 mega projects that are lingering, that are left over from House Bill 2017, which include the Rose Quarter, your favorite road project, the I-205 bottleneck, the Dundee-Newburgh bypass, Center Street Bridge in Salem, and the Hood River White Salmon Bridge. So those are the big 5 that I think are being discussed in the legislature right now. Your lovely project, our lovely project here in Clackamas County, is a $800 million bridge and a $700 to $800 million widening project. Again, that is on top of the $3.5 billion O&M target that the legislature is trying to reach. I have not even talked about transit yet. That is a number as well that needs to go above and beyond. Keep in mind that in 2017, the transportation package, which was touted as a big, bold package, only got to $6 billion total, and that was an increase over multiple years. So it wasn't like a once in a lifetime, or it was a 10-year package, 10-year bundle, a 10-cent gas tax increase over 5 or 6 years. It was relatively small compared to what the legislature is trying to find right now. And that is before any legislator has sort of been able to negotiate additional projects in there to get a vote here or there. So I say all of that napkin math to help you understand the complexity of what legislators are trying to wrestle with. They need your support if you want a transportation package to pass, to understand what they're going to get out of O&M funding. They need your support to know what type of funding mechanisms are supportable for them to cast votes if you want a transportation package to move forward. And that includes gas tax going up, vehicle registration fees going up, the potential implementation of vehicle miles traveled or road user charge, whatever phrase you like there. Potentially the implementation of mechanisms you've maybe never thought about before or never heard of before, or that other states are starting to do. They're looking under every rock. They've been asked to go find more rocks to look under. There are a lot of funding needs for the transportation package. So I paint this big scary picture because we happen to have one of those big scary projects that would have to go up and above and beyond on top of that. And I want to share with you a question that I received, and I would love your help in communicating this, which was, if the state highway fund has to raise an additional $3.5 billion per biennium, and then we have to find money above and beyond that, how will we pay for I-205? This group was successful in trying to articulate, not trying to, you did it, in articulating the troubles of tolling and what that would do for your communities. Tolling in and of itself, we have all said, is not a bad mechanism, but it has to be at the right place. There has to have the right supporting pieces there, and none of that was committed to the I-205 project. It failed for a lot of reasons in the Clackamas County I-205 portion of the facility. I'm not saying that tolling is coming back. I'm not saying that that is on the table. Actually, I am kind of saying it's on the table. Everything's on the table. But what I am trying to say is, if not tolling, then what? It is a question that I have been asked, I would say, every couple of days since the session has begun. And we have talked about that question here as well in C4 multiple times. That question will continue to come, but more recently, it has become in earnest because of how expensive the project is and the amount of money that legislators are trying to take. So what I have shared was, with people who are trying to build the package and the framework, is I'm happy to bring that question back to the communities of Clackamas County and Clackamas County here at C4, so long as the other 5 projects have to answer the same question. If we don't want tolling for our project, then what? Is a fair question to be asked. But if the Rose Quarter or Center Street Bridge or other projects in Dundee, if they're not being asked to find local mechanisms or other mechanisms that struggle in their community to have to figure out how to pay for it, then you shouldn't be asked either. So that's where I'm at currently, at least with conversations that have happened when I've been in a room around the transportation package and I-205. We maintain that it's a 2017 commitment. It is a project that should have already been completed. It should have already been funded. It was a shame that tolling was put on the price tag for it, and it was a shame that that project was, I would say, bungled and indefinitely paused. However, we don't want the bottleneck to continue. All of our communities have said that that is still a priority project, so you will have to continue to maintain that that is a serious project that you support. The Abernathy Bridge is obviously getting built. It's being built right now. But if you want that lane, you will have to find a way to convince legislators that you support some sort of mechanism that will help pay for that lane. So that is something that you need to think about, and we need to think about for when the time comes that we get asked that very hairy question. We will get cornered on that question. I just want to be very clear about it. What do we support? So harken back to the C4 retreat last June, where we did a little dot exercise where you put, some of these things I support, you put these dots in different pieces. And there were a lot of, big, bold funding mechanisms that you put dots next to. And kudos to that. I took a picture of that because it's, what's the phrase where you can't see anybody's names? It's unanimous, or no.
Anonymous.
Anonymous, that's the one. It's late. It's anonymous. And so it's been very nice to be able to show this picture of that photo of that dot board to legislators and say, I have a group of Clackamas County leaders who are supportive of you making big, bold decisions, but tolling just doesn't happen to be one of them on this board. So, you have support to do big, bold things, but it has to build something. And that's what you were also clear about, is big, bold things fine, as long as it's delivering on those different projects. I know that's a lot. I'm just kind of giving you the lay of the land right now. We are expecting a framework of the transportation package to release here, I would say soonish. I have been told today that it's not going to be bill language. It will be a framework of what it could be. And so that's starting to mature, I'd say today and maybe next week. And I'm hoping that we see that framework by Valentine's Day, which is not too far away. That's been the communication so far. It may still take a little while. So we're in a waiting period right now. When I know something, you will know something, keeping this in like that community group feel, because that's where we have been strong, is we have been working together. And that has been true for 205. That has been true for tolling. That's been true for a lot of things Clackamas County, is that this is a good team and a good coordinating body. And I think we can do big, bold things here. So that's my update. And I'm happy to take questions and answer any question that I can answer. And I'll tell you, if I don't know, I won't know.
Right, before I turn over to Mayor Milch, just two quick clarifications. So you mentioned the big five. I wrote down Interstate Bridge, Rose Quarter, I-205, the Dundee Bypass, and what was the other one?
I'm sorry. So delete the IBR, although that is still sticking around. Last year or 2 years ago, the legislature committed to fund, I think it was committed to do it in general fund over multiple bienniums.
Right.
Up to $1 billion. So to a lot of legislators, they've already made that IBR commitment. So the big five were the Rose Quarter, 205, Center Street Bridge in Salem, Dundee Newburgh Bypass, that's like phase 2B or something like that, and then the Hood River White Salmon Bridge.
And my other clarifying question is, the question that you're asking or that you're being asked is if the 3.5 billion per biennium does come through, what will Clackamas County do to pay for the lane in 205, right? That's what you're being asked.
So that's the message, is that 3.5 billion is just O&M, right? And that's ODOT's not going to be able to use any of that because that's not going to be project money. That's going to be, again, in our napkin math scenario, only half of what they have communicated is their need for operations and maintenance. So the rest of that goes to you, and, cities and counties, if that 50-30-20 formula stays true. So that's why the legislature is saying 3.5 billion just buys O&M votes, and then that doesn't touch the projects that we're talking about. So it has to go above 3.5 billion to even start to get to those projects. That's what they're saying is, are you willing to pitch in some of your 50-30-20 to see those projects move forward? I mean, that question has come up a couple times. I think that's a pretty hairy question. That's super interesting to me. I'm guessing for a federal highway, that's pretty unorthodox, but how bad do you want the bottleneck project is a question we are going to get asked. And so how do you go above and beyond 3.5 billion dollars and support something there? That's where it's getting to, is what is more that you're willing to support.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mayor Milch, and then we'll go to Commissioner Savas.
Quick question. It's just under the Oregon Constitution. If we come up with a new way of creating revenue, like a vehicle miles traveled tax, for example, is it within the authority of the legislature alone to enact that, or is that something that would ever be put to the voters?
Lovely question. Don't know if I have the full answer to it. The legislature can enact almost anything that they want to, and then it can be referred to voters. They can raise taxes that voters could refer to and vote it down. They could repeal it. I think every transportation package that I've ever heard about in the state, it gets passed, and then there's like a 30 or 60 day, everybody hold your breath to see if the voters refer it to the next ballot. Yeah, I think the legislature can create a new tax, and then they can choose who implements it and then whether or not it needs to be approved by voters. I hope that's probably doesn't answer your full question, because some of it was I don't know, but
that was a very good answer, because it reminded me that there are those options that becomes both the people and the legislature kind of working in concert with one another. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, well, thanks, Trent, for that. And colleagues, I just want to say that what I've been waiting for is, well, not really so much an outline, but more of a proposal from the Transportation Committee. I don't know if or when that will happen, to give us, at least me, I've been looking forward to get some sense of scale as to what, whatever funding mechanism may be, what it would generate to impact or get the results they're looking for. That's more of a financial revenue office kind of a activity and a presentation that they feel they can. And then, you typically don't bond for O&M. But if the package or the proposal, the draft proposal included something for the 5 projects that they could bond, then great. That would give me, again, some sense of scale as to what we would answer that question. What would we support, right? So I don't have that, and I do know that we did anonymously, I guess, put our little buttons, or not buttons, but stickers on the board there supporting something. So we did acknowledge that it was going to cost something to build something, but we didn't have any scale or measurement as to what that would be in total or whatnot. So I wanted to first say that. The other thing that I'm also looking for the question of, I haven't really heard it, is that the 10 cents that was added in increments as a result of HB 2017, it came in tranches of 2 cents, 2 cents, 2 cents. So that total 10 cents has been 100% implemented. Is that 100% bonded and spoken for? Because that is still an existing source that should be used for completion of the HB 2017 project. So I on all the committees I sat on, including the last one with the state legislature, the Joint Committee on Transportation as a work group member, I never heard about either the demise or the future or what the function of that 10 cents of HB 2017 is doing today or will do in the future, and when those bonds will roll off, and if there is a future opportunity to do more down the road. So that's number 2. Number 3, Trent, you did a great job touching on this, but I want to add one element. Let's say that that 50% more that we would get under this 1.3 or 1.7 package, whatever that number is, that came to Lake Oswego and came to Wilsonville and came to, or all of us here, all the cities. One thing we talked this morning to one of our state legislators who sits on the transportation committee, we put on the table was, what if, because these state legislators, how they got it across the finish line 8 years ago was everyone got a little project in their district. And there's just not enough money to do that again. So what if the cities and the counties said, you know what, if we got a little bit more of the 50-30-20 split, we could build X. And if you're in Baker, Oregon, let's just say, or anywhere in the state, if every county and city identified, hey, if I got more, I would do this particular project. So that state legislator might feel happy or glad or be able to say, justify or be able to support or vote for an increase. I think we might ask ourselves, if we go down our CIP for our transportation budgets, and what are those projects that we could possibly do if we had more? What would be the don't they say the sexy project, but the one that might gain interest, that would get support from not only the city, obviously, but also your state legislators, whether they're senators or state representatives. So that's the third thing I wanted to just throw out there for fodder. If you are truly engaged, or perhaps ought to be more engaged, whichever it may be, with your state legislators to help them get across the finish line, they're going to need your support. They're going to need to hear that you support something for this crisis, and that might be another means of encouraging them to look at the whole package. Did I miss anything, Trent?
That was a good recap of the conversation we had this morning with Senator Starr, who was just highlighting that the no new projects mission that has come around every legislative office, every lobbyist who's talking about the transportation package. No new projects, no new projects. The heartburn is like, well, how do you get people to vote for that? How do you get bipartisan votes for that? If nothing's coming home, right? Honestly, how do you buy votes for that? And just there's the reality of legislation that legislators got to legislate. They got to put their projects on their table. There's some haggling that goes on. And there's other priorities in the legislative session where some of that can be maneuvered, but yeah, most transportation packages have been bipartisan in the past because a lot of people get projects baked into the bill that kind of go above and beyond the grant process and other things. That's the earmark process. I'm sure every one of you has already talked to your legislator about the project that you want to see in Tualatin, Lake Oswego, Happy Valley, Clackamas County, and you should be doing that. Do not do that. absolutely you should do that, because you don't want to be the community that didn't do that. Suddenly projects are starting to pop up and you didn't do it because somebody said no new projects, but the legislature, bless their heart, it's not a fair place. It's a place where there's a lot of haggling going on. So definitely advocate for your projects. Do it as a group if we can. That's the goal of the coordinating committee. But so far, the leadership has been very successful in defending the package against the new projects. They're sticking to the big five. They're sticking to the O&M. They're sticking to the transit pieces. And it's because of how big the package is just with those things. So I guess to Commissioner Savis's point, sorry, I guess I didn't finish my thought. If you can say, if you raise the state highway fund this much, and whatever that math is, I think the number I'm pretty close is about 50%. If those numbers that I was describing earlier, that's about what it would be. You know, do that mental exercise, or do that exercise with your council or commission, and say, like, you know, what would we prioritize in the next 5 or 10 years if we did see an increase like that, and then be able to articulate that with some measure of honesty, like, if this money goes up, you have our commitment that we'll fix a couple of bridges, we'll widen a couple shoulders, we'll put a roundabout there where we've seen some safety issues, we'll put a crosswalk over there by that school that's been asking for it for a little bit, whatever that looks like for you. So I think that is a very healthy exercise, because every legislator, those are not going to be easy votes, and so they're going to need anything they can take home that will be helpful to them.
So before I go over to Mayor Kaiser, I'm just going to kind of maybe gripe for a moment. And when they say no new projects, I-205 is not a new project. That was part of 2017.
Amen.
So we're all adults here, but I'm just going to go, what the French toast is, how does that fall through? And why is that even an issue? So I digress. Mayor Kaiser.
Thank you, Chair. Trent, Commissioner Salvas kind of touched on this, and I think some of the people that are in this room right here are probably some of the smartest people in Clackamas County, excluding myself. But one of the issues that one of the things that needs to be brought up for us to be able to solve the issues is to see where all the money's going. It's been advertised on the radio for the last week that ODOT's giving $30 million in grant money away to safe sidewalks for schools. And another friend of mine who's a mayor, they got the grant, and they went to the school district and said, hey, will you help chip in on our part of it? And the school districts are saying no. But nonetheless, ODOT is spending all this money toward the schools, safe sidewalks. When I have my main street, Highway 211, hasn't been repaved in over 20 years, and it's crumbling. And I get laughed at every time I bring it up. And if we knew where all this money went, we could come up with a lot of solutions, because it's government, and there's always some fat and there's always some waste that goes somewhere. And we don't get those numbers. We don't get those facts. And so this problem is just going to be a revolving circle until we can see where all the money is going currently, to figure out how much money is actually needed to continue to keep it afloat.
Good point. Commissioner Morrow.
Thank you, Mayor Hodson. Once again, I have to strongly agree with the person who immediately preceded me. So to Trent, to your question that was posed about what it is that we would be supportive of as a funding source in order to get this done, my response to that would be, I would be open to pretty much anything once I know that the organization and the structure of the Oregon Department of Transportation is actually set up in a way that allows them to do what they're supposed to do. It's interesting that we have an executive agency that has distrust from the likes of Bike Portland to the Oregon Trucking Association. I mean, there is no trust among anybody along that spectrum. And so for me, we all want a transportation package to occur, but we all want to make sure that this doesn't end up like the last one and that we're not in this same situation 8 years from now talking about how the projects from this transportation package still haven't occurred. And so that would be my response, is that I think we're all very open to seeing what those additional funding sources can be, so long as the trust is there that they will actually be able to do the job.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. I think that, yeah, there's a lot of head nods in the room on that, on those comments, and so I really appreciate that. I don't think that we will be Trent's opinion here. Probably should keep my mouth shut. What can you control? And that's what I would invite you to think about. Like, what do you have to gain as a community? Will this group actually be able to influence ODOT or the governor's office? I don't know. You've been very successful in protecting yourselves from things that have passed and programs and policies that have been implemented, but ODOT can change, other pieces can change, but there is a flavor of revenue and services that you could potentially benefit from with increases like what are being discussed that can come back to your community. And so not everything is going to be picture perfect in a transportation package. Nothing ever is. I agree with you, Commissioner Morrow. To the extent that we can help create some of that clarity and functionality with ODOT, that has been a priority for you. You know, keep that administrative burden down, keep the partnerships good, keep the trust high, fix the trust deficit with DOT, especially after that tolling situation that we all got to live through. All those things should be true too. And let's do what we can to make sure that we are whole, that your O&M problems and your deferred maintenance projects are also moving forward too, even if ODOT's still struggling. They're going to have their problems. What can we focus on? What's in our control? I think that's a healthy exercise for us to do as well.
Thank you. And if I could follow up on that, Mayor Hodson, just real quick.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So something that I just want to again reiterate for everyone here is that the passage of a transportation package is not a fait accompli. There is no assurance that this is going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then that is a great opportunity for us to continue pushing on our legislators and pushing the ideal of transparency from the Oregon Department of Transportation and allowing them to get the political capital they need in the future if they would like to try again once those reassurances of transparency and fiscal responsibility are proven to us.
Yeah, I'll be brief as much as I can so Valerie can go and then we can move on to the next final piece here. Yeah, Commissioner Morrow, I think it's not just, and I think Trent, you said it too, I think it's just a trust piece with ODOT. I think it's a trust piece with the OTC. I fully, I think a lot of it lays at their feet as well. So my comments and whatnot is as follows. So Trent, do we know the price tag for all the big five projects? Like, do we know what that amount is to get those?
I do not know the price tag for that. And again, just focusing on our projects, the Abernathy Bridge is about $800 million. ODOT and the OTC have decided to bond that project out. In theory, if ODOT and the legislature made no funding decisions, the Abernathy Bridge is technically paid for through bonds through ODOT, and you would not have to potentially toll it to raise money for that. So, but that would not solve the widening problem of the bottleneck issue.
Which is how much?
We've been told somewhere between an additional $700 to $800 million. Just a smooth $700 to $800 million.
800 mil. Okay. All right. So, to the question that you pose about what are our cities and what are we willing to do as a county, I think at one point that picture of that dot sheet was sent out. Can you send that out again to all of us as well as because I think it'd be a good conversation for us to, you're nodding your head, you seem wishy-washy on sending it out. Why?
the more thing it becomes less anonymous, the more it gets circulated. It's been kind of nice and ambiguous as a picture on my phone. I mean, I guess this is a recorded message. Anyone could request it. It's a public document, and I'm a public employee. I'm happy to share it with you guys. Just the more we have out there, the more we have out there. That's a reflection of anonymous exercise that you got to do. It's been fairly helpful, but I'm happy to send it to you if that's the request.
Okay, well, here's my thought. I mean, it's one thing for us to be here and talk about what we think our cities would be willing to do. I also have 6 city councilors that might want to weigh in terms of dialogue on what they feel as a council we want to get behind as this project moves forward. That's why I ask. So I'll let you and Jamie bat that around. But if there's a way to get some idea of, even if it's just a listing of, even if it's just a list of what was on there, not what was stickered, that gives us at least something to work with. So there's that piece.
I guess what I would offer there is any day now in the next week or so, we should see the framework of the package. And I think what we will see there is what's actually potentially on the table. And I would recommend us using that.
Okay.
Once we have it to do the exercise.
Okay. I do think that there is a tremendous amount of ODOT bloat. To Commissioner Merle's point, I think that has inflated their operating costs quite a bit, in my opinion. Tolling, I agree. I don't think it's gone away. I think it is going to be part of this funding mechanism in some capacity. When we did the League of Oregon Cities day at the Capitol, Governor Kotek talked and did bring up the 50-30-20 piece. For those of us that were there, I don't think she gave a resounding vocal or full-throated support of the 50-30-20. She was very non-committal about that still being something that she would protect. That was not my impression I got from her, was that she would protect that as a funding mechanism. If there are others that were there that read that differently, then I'm all for it. So those were my comments. I will now shut up and turn it over to Ms. Pratt.
Thanks. Real quick, I just have to say I was so disappointed that our new Secretary of State didn't have ODOT on the top 5 for the first audits, and because several of us were quite outspoken about that. My question, Trent, is do you know if they're talking about still looking at increasing or maybe at least inflation adjusting the gas tax? Because we heard directly from Travis Brower, I think it was like 25 or 30 cents would cover all these projects. It's like 1% administration cost compared to the outrageous amount tolling was. So I'm just wondering if that's still on the table.
Indexing is on the table for literally any mechanism they start to discuss, and so that's what I've heard. I haven't seen a framework. I can't send you just a document that anyone's seen. I'm not in the legislative circle that tightly, but I would say indexing has been one of the top issues that everyone has talked about, not just for gas tax, because gas tax is a diminishing revenue source as vehicles become more efficient. But also for any piece. So the vehicle registration fee. I mean, similarly, you wouldn't want to make that a flat fee if you're trying to keep up with the demand and cost of inflation for anything. Or same for the vehicle miles traveled road user charge, right? So I think indexing will be a component that we see on many tools.
That's good. Thank you.
Great, Trent. We always appreciate your updates. I know that you're the harbinger of bad news with this conversation, so appreciate that you deliver it so delicately. Is there any other comments or thoughts that people want to give to Trent real quick before we move into our final piece tonight?
Well, while you take a second to raise your hand if you do have a question, I want to flag that we didn't really talk a lot about transit. There is an effort within the legislature and the Oregon Transit Association that is trying to increase the STIF funding, the State Transportation Improvement Fund, that funds a heavy amount of service within our region, not just at TriMet, but also within the what I call the small providers or the PTSPs around Clackamas County, in and around Clackamas County. Some of those are deep within your cities. So Sandy and Wilsonville, Canby, you have city service that receives STIF funding. So increases by formula would inherently go to your jurisdictions if that were to be increased. Malala has the South County Transit District, SCTD, right? So similarly, I think they receive STIF formula funds as well that could go their way, and the county does as well. So that the OTA, Oregon Transit Association, has requested a ×5, I believe, increase for that, and so that would take it from like 0.1%, if I'm correct, John, up to like 0.5%. And so I know I'm saying it just poorly. You're looking for your mute. Did I do it?
1/10%.
Yeah.
Trent, excuse me.
A 0.1%. That's pretty close. I think I said that right. Yeah. Okay.
I
We're
think you
good.
did.
We're
Okay.
good.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
that's a lot of money. I don't want to say it's not a lot of money, but it's part of the equation. So there you go. I wanted to make sure we had a chance to talk about it.
Trent, could you?
Commissioner Sabas, be quick.
Yeah, Trent, could you just real quickly, just apprise everyone of what we learned about the two bills from related to the STIF or related to transit? We learned of, but so just apprise everyone of what those are.
Yes, there are two bills that have come out of out of our Clackamas County delegation. And so one of them is a bill that would change who the qualified entity would be for where STIF dollars would go and then be dispersed. I think the qualified entity does more than that, but it would change it from these transit districts around the state to giving counties the option to opt in to being the qualified entity within a region. So right now within our region, at least with STIF funding, all of the STIF dollars go to TriMet, and TriMet is the QE for the region, and they have the lovely job of having to administer that out to the small providers. And if this bill were to go into effect, it would make the counties potentially the QE, and they would have to decide how that goes in, and that would be really complicated for someone like TriMet and Wilsonville, who shares county boundaries. So I would say that was something that came out of the representatives that represent the Wilsonville area, and I'd say at large there are a lot of question marks about that. The Oregon Transit Association, not a big fan of that particular bill. I'm not confident that the counties would want to take on that burden either. I think there's a more elegant solution to that, but that's in discussion, and that bill does not have a hearing, so more to come on that. The other bill that came out of the Clackamas delegation came from Senator Meek, which was a what's the word here? Sorry, I don't have the numbers next to me, but that bill would eliminate the STIF. And so that would eliminate those dollars that go to your transit agencies and some of that transit service there. So that is a controversial bill in many forms, but I think it is a reflection of, and this is what he shared with me, a reflection of a need for better service within in and around Clackamas County. And so there is some, we've talked a lot about, how to improve services in and around Clackamas County. And I don't want to bury the lead here for Jamie or take her moment to shine here in a minute, but the transit subcommittee of C4 will be getting together soon to start talking about like, what does improved transit look like in Clackamas County? What sort of steps do we need to take to make those conditions better? So I think there's a lot of momentum around like, how do we improve transit in Clackamas County? Is the STIF funding working to provide transit in Clackamas County in a much better way? So I have to, based on my conversations with Senator Meek, that is the origin of that bill. It could be amended, it could go away, but to Commissioner Savas's point, those are the two bills I think you're referencing.
Okay. All right. Updates and other businesses. JPAC update. Ready, set, go.
Mayor Buck.
We I had Councilor Sherman at the last meeting. He's not here. I don't want to put you on the spot, Commissioner Savas. I know that the meat of the JPAC being, though, and following up with Councilor Sherman, they didn't really talk about, which of course is our projects. He said there was other updates that were covered more so, and they left the good stuff for last and then ran out of time.
Yeah, well, I'll fill in some gaps. Some discussion about some bonding for the potential bonding for for the RFFA dollars and the opportunity. So no clear outcome other than we kind of redirected them to look in other areas and other means. So we're expecting to get some feedback on that pretty soon. Also discussion on whether or not we're going to do a JPAC trip to Washington, D.C. I think the initial staff recommendation was not to do that. And I think the consensus of not the consensus, but a majority of the commenters were actually, we really need to go and to JPAC this year. Maybe we need to change our message or, adjust to the climate there in Washington, D.C. But nonetheless, we're probably going to have a trip. Don't know when exactly, but more details to come. And I think that was primarily the thrust of the meeting. I'm sure I'm leaving something out. I know I am, but
Okay. Impact. Once, twice. No takers. Okay. Annual retreat date setting. Miss Lorenzini.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, C4, Jamie Lorenzini, your staff. Over the last several years, C4 has held an overnight retreat during the summer months. This retreat is an opportunity to deep dive on topics of interest, traditionally transportation, but also housing. We have been in contact with the resort, and there are 3 weekends available. Tonight, I want to share some of those potential dates, but I'll be sending out a doodle poll, recognizing that some members aren't here tonight who may be interested. To my knowledge, none of these dates conflict with major conferences such as the League of Cities, the Association of Oregon Counties, or the Oregon Transit Associations. I'm going to drop these possible dates in the chat just as an FYI. Doodle poll to come, but in the meantime, if any of these dates are a hard pass, please let me know.
Can I interject really quick? When is NACO's annual conference in July? Do we know?
Good question.
It's in July, but I'm not sure of the dates.
The NACO annual conference is July 11th through the 14th.
Okay. Be a busy July,
Okay. So Jamie's giving us a little taster of the dates, and a doodle poll will go out. Yes?
Yes.
All right. Anything else on this one, Jamie?
No, however, I do have some additional updates to provide under other business.
Great. I'll let you take it.
Great. First, I'd like to jump in the way back machine to the VRF conversation to correct a piece of data. Mike double-checked the data, and Wilsonville is contributing $1 million. So apologies, Mayor O'Neill. I'll be circling back around with your staff. Secondly, I have an update from your January meeting, flash forward to now. In January, C4 moved to reconvene the C4 Transit Provider Subcommittee with a request that the subcommittee explore ideas and options for how to more aggressively expand transit coverage in Clackamas County. The bylaws specify that this subcommittee is comprised of the staff of C4 members who represent or operate a public transit service or receive service. We are targeting Wednesday, February 19th from 1 to 2 p.m. for a kickoff meeting. If you're interested in attending this group or sitting at the table, please drop your email into the chat. Alternatively, staff on the attendees side of this meeting are welcome to send me an email. I am dropping it into the chat. Are there any questions? No, I've wowed you with information.
No, you've wowed us with information. Yes. Do you have any other business, Jamie?
No, that is it.
I do have one piece of business, and that is Commissioner Savas and Commissioner West. Will you please, at your next budget cycle, please budget additional money for the lights to stay on until at least 9 o'clock for you guys? Or purchase room lamps, floor lamps, or something for you. I've really enjoyed Commissioner West's antics of waving and dancing in his chair. Jamie, you were very well contained tonight. That's really good. So, okay. If there's nothing else, I'm going to say, Mayor Kaiser, we make a motion to adjourn. Great. And Paul Gornick, you second it? Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. C4, thank you all. Have a great month. See you next month.
Yeah.